P90s or humbuckers, which are your favorite for a Gibson SG? What's up, everyone? I'm Jack Fossett. Welcome to the channel and welcome to this shootout between the two classic pickup styles for a Gibson SG. This video is sponsored by Gunstreet, and the pickups you are hearing are Gunstreet pickups. I've got the 60s era P90s and the 60s era humbuckers, and a Gibson SG Classic, which is basically like a Gibson SG Special, and a Gibson SG Standard. Now, these guitars are both a little bit older, and they've gone through multiple pickup changes over the years in which I've had, and these are actually two of the oldest guitars that I have, and I absolutely adore and love both of them. They're great guitars. Now, somewhere along the line, when I was starting to play my SG, I'm just going to call it the Special, because that's really what it is. When I was playing my SG Special, I remember somebody making a flippant remark to me about how, geez, an SG doesn't need P90s. It needs humbuckers. It needs humbuckers. This is a rock guitar. It bothered me. I mean, obviously it bothered me because the person was stupid, but it really kind of got to me because I loved my new guitar, and then you get somebody putting down your new guitar and everything. And sure enough, come to find out that it's also just not true historically speaking. In fact, when you look at the players who have played Gibson SGs, first of all, many of them played both style pickups, but some of the really, really classic SG tones of the past have come from P90s. When the Les Paul changed body shapes in 1961 and became the SG body shape before it changed name years later to become SG for solid guitar, it inherited the sort of a hierarchy of Les Paul models. So there was the Les Paul Junior, the Les Paul Special, the Les Paul Standard, the Les Paul Custom. And if you think about all those Les Paul-wise, the same models changed. They just all got SG shapes. So you had the SG Les Paul, but SG Junior, SG Special, Standard, and Custom, and so on and so forth. And a lot of famous players played the SG Special in particular, including Robbie Krieger of the Doors, Tony Iommi, one of my favorites, Carlos Santana, who actually played an SG Special at Woodstock. You also had Pete Townsend playing an SG Special, and even Angus Young at times played an SG Junior. Now, obviously, many of these guys are also known for playing SG Standards, and the list of SG Standard players is seemingly infinite. It's obviously, it's been Gibson's best-selling guitar throughout Gibson's history, I believe. And somebody can fact check me on that, but I'm pretty sure the SG is Gibson's best-selling guitar and has always been in production since it debuted in '61, as opposed to many of their other classic models, which have been off and on again. So I love to embrace the P90 sound in the SG, and particularly because the SG has kind of a mid-rangey and snappy sound to it. There's something about the P90 that really works, not in a way that gives it more of that too much, but in a way that's very snappy. That being said, I also obviously like the humbucker sound, and more of my SGs have humbuckers than P90s. In fact, this is the only one that I have that has P90s, but it's a really special guitar, and it's a really great sound. So the two sets of pickups that I have in these really match up well, and the guitars match up well, which is why I used these two guitars for the Shootout video. They're both very, very similar weight. They kind of have similar density, so tonally they've always been the same. Cue all the people who are going to say that that doesn't make a difference, but it does. And they both have the Batwing pick guard. I mean, you know, right down to the same tuners, the same pots and everything. So it's a very, very one-to-one matchup, even though they're not in exactly the same guitar. Now, for these two sets of Gunstreet pickups, again, they're both the 60s era. They make a number of sets of pickups. They make 50s era for humbuckers and P90s. These are the 60s era. They both use Alnico 5 magnets and 42 gauge wire. And you'll hear that the interesting thing is that the difference between the two isn't quite as dramatic as you would expect. It is definitely noticeable. It's noticeable to the point where, you know, hopefully this video helps any of you who are in the market for an SG and trying to decide whether or not you get a P91 or a humbucker one. Hopefully this helps steer you in the right direction. There is a little bit of a difference, but not so much that it's, you know, like, what am I going to do? So I particularly like both of them. And one of the nice things about it is that you get the P90, which has a little bit of this sort of snappy growl to it. It almost has or let's say a growly twang. It's not a Telecaster twang by any stretch of the imagination, but it definitely has a little bit more attack on the note and just that sort of growliness again. Whereas the humbucker has a little bit more of that warm, jazzy snap to it. And the thing that I do like about Gunstreet pickups also is they have a lot of clarity in their pickups. So you're not going to get any mud problems with pickup sets like this. So to show that off, let's go back and hear both of these guitars back to back clean on each pickup setting. Now today I'm plugging into my Rivera Venus Deux. All right, now we're going to test them out overdriven. Obviously, a lot of players who play the SG are going for overdriven tones. So we're still going into the Venus Deux, and today I am using my Warm Audio Throne of Tone. That's their new dual blues breaker style pedal. I'm just using one side of it for some nice overdrive, and I've got that loaded up on a Ghostfire powered pedal board, which is providing its power. So let's hear all the pickup settings back to back overdriven. All right, let us know what you think. Did you have a distinct preference one way or the other? I, again, kind of consider it like a win-win. I think, there are certainly situations where I would favor one over the other. I might lean more towards the P90 guitar if I'm playing in a band that has more instruments, because there is a little bit more bite and a little bit more cut. The humbuckers definitely fill up the sound a bit more, but again, they're closer than you would think. They're closer than you might expect. I think a really good P90 and a really good humbucker share a lot of the same tonal qualities, and when you really get down to it, the differences are kind of nitpicky. The other thing is that many people will nowadays mix and match. So it's very, very common to see, particularly with a guitar like this, where, with the Batwing SG, as opposed to the 61 style SG, which has like the half size pick guard. With the Batwing size pick guard, you can get custom ones that give you the size of a P90, like a soap bar P90 in the neck with a humbucker in the bridge, so that you get a little bit more of that bite in the neck position and then still the fuller sound in the bridge position. Obviously, you might see players who do that the opposite, which isn't the most typical thing in the world, but hey, you see, it's just like kind of like when you see a Telecaster that has a humbucker in the neck position and then it still has the single coil in the bridge. It's just all kinds of ways you can mix and match. So I am going to put a link below to where you can check out these Gunstreet pickups. I've loved Gunstreet pickups, and I kind of pitched this video to them because I've put a bunch of sets in a bunch of my guitars, and pickup demos are one of those things where, you know, I really only like to do them with companies that I like because they're my personal guitars, you know, and I don't really like kind of pulling them apart and changing parts all the time. So I want to get stuff in there from companies that I like that are making good quality stuff. And this is my fourth set of Gunstreet pickups. So hopefully that tells you all that you need to know. And again, check out that link for the full set of specs on both of these sets of pickups. Let us know what you think. I'm Jack Fossett. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.
Walking uptown and this neighborhood has changed. They call it up and coming, but the air is still the same. The papers praise the trends that draw new faces near. So let's keep walking on and thank God that we're here. We're walking uptown, we're cruising tonight. Now heading downtown, we're playing blues tonight. The biting tones of guitars make the